Hello everyone, No Luck here. New video, new year, new update to the current set, new rank after complete months of grinding, basically out with the old and bring in the new and hopefully better with set 4.5 Festival of the Beasts. Now, before I go over the changes for the new set, I'll go over what's set 4 removed with the new champs and traits being removed, and how I felt about the set in general and things I want to see in the updated set. Basically, to clean house, Morton the TF team got rid of 6 traits and 20 champions or so, which include the entire dust line for just being completely consistent, and also a lot of people, including myself, being tired of seeing Dusks run every single damn game. I would say most of the Dazzlers were removed, and they were just okay, except for Ezreal, who was pretty busted towards the later half of the season, but Dazzlers were an okay support class that weren't really built as much. You also have the Moonlights, which are just really annoying to deal with, and were also kind of annoying to play as, because if you're going Moonlights with 2 other people and you want Diana and they want Aphelios, but they're also taking your Dianas, it's going to be hard to 4-star them, let alone get top 4 without trying to use them as a transitional piece into later mid-game and late-game comps. And also, there are times where you want to get that one Diana, that one Aphelios, and you're just rolling and rolling and rolling. 100 gold later, you're still not getting that last Diana. You're like, well, this is the 8th. This is the 8th. I can't deal with this. They also removed Hunters and Shades, but I would say for 2 main reasons. One of them was that for certain patches they dominated the meta. You had War Week, you had the Hunter meta with Kindred just nuking people. You also had Ashe early in the set. She was just dominating, just going in the back line, just killing everything in sight. And you also had Shades, where RFC Gwynsu's or Rune's Hurricane Zed and RFC Blue Buff Akali were just nuking people, and you're just like, well, I just can't do anything. I put my carries in the corner with all my front line, and I just can't do anything. Like, what the hell is this shit, man? And so, the second reason was that they were similar to Sharpshooters and Assassins. Sharpshooters were more AoE and spread their effects across the board, while Hunters were more DPS single target focused. Shades and Assassins were similar, but Shades were like every 3rd auto attack. They're like, oh, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. You can't touch me. I can touch you, but you can't touch me. And then they kill you. And you're just like, well, where's the counterplay in that? You know? Like, there's no counterplay in that. And so, Hunters and Shades were essentially caught in the crossfire and removed. And only most of them got removed, not every single unit, from both of those traits. This also included Tormented because of Kayn. And I would say that's basically it. Now you have 3 other units being carried over, that being Kindred being a Spirit Executioner, Zed being a Ninja Slayer, and Morgana being reworked into a mid-range Enlightened Siphoner. And you also have Diana, who is carried over being a Spirit Assassin instead of a Moonlight one. And all of their costs are going to be the same as before. Now, what about the other units that didn't make it in? Well, you had Hecarim, Xin Zhao, Jinx, Nami, Jhin, and Ahri. Basically, Hecarim and Xin Zhao were average units that just were filler and didn't have enough impact in the game, because Hecarim would be placed with Nunu a bunch of the time, and Xin Zhao wouldn't necessarily be considered a tank or a carry because you already had Jax, and for carry you already had Yone and Yasuo for the duelists, so he was just kind of there. He kind of just existed as that piece where you'd yoink him out for somebody else, you know? It was just too much overlap, and their costs or effects just weren't really useful. Now, Jhin, Jinx, and Ahri. They were strong due to essentially being carries that you could just slot in and have fun with, already having two comps revolved around her. Jin, essentially, you could place him down in any comp, give him some sword items, and he'll just start blasting like he's Danny DeVito. And Jinx, which was a bit of a balance problem, where she was either too good or too niche, or she needed everyone to be a sharpshooter in order for her stunts to just go crazy. So those are the reasons why those two were removed. And then you have Nami. When you add a 3-star chosen Nami, give her 2 Ludens, a QSS, give her an extra mage or 2 depending on what chosen she's given, whether it's enlightened or mage, respectively. It allows her to cast twice on 1 per target, and they're stun locked for 4 seconds, dealing double damage. You get the most overpowered 1-cost unit in the game by far, no questions asked. And thank God she is removed, because a 3-star Nami should not be able to carry your entire team through mid-game or even late game. Now, with that out of the way, what champions and traits are being added in as replacements? Note, numbers, stats, and even some of the traits may change throughout the set, so this is mainly just a disclaimer. Now, I mentioned before Slayers, Siphoners, and Executioners, so I'll get them out quickly. Slayers gain percentage life steal that will ramp up to a cap the lower health that they are, and they'll deal bonus damage to a cap based on their missing target's HP. This includes Zedfritter the Assassins, sorta, as I mentioned before, Darius, Olaf, Tryndamere, and Pike. Yes, Pike is also an Assassin Slayer, yes. Really, really great. And you also have Samira, who replaced Kayn. And speaking of which, she's got her own special trait, because 5 costs need special traits every single time, which is called Daredevil. Basically, she has a skill rank thing that goes from E to S. After every other attack, Samira will dash and shield herself for 20% max HP, fire 2 shots, and increase her style rank. It goes, the more she auto attacks, the more her style rank increases up to S. Once she reaches S rank, she ults, basically dealing a ton of damage, having 100% dodge chance, and also gaining a little bit of lifesteal along with it. And when she's increasing stars, so at 2-star Samira or 3-star Samira, her style rank for her ult, the base one, goes from, let's say, E to C at the highest rank to start off with, allowing her to ult sooner and more often. After she ults, it gets reset down to the lowest rank possible for her star level. So, out with Mr. 200 Years with Aphelios, and with Miss 300 Years with Samira. Now we have Executioners. All of them are ranged, and their basic attacks and spells will crit targets below a certain health percentage, ranging between 33 to 99% crit. And they include Kindred, as I mentioned before, Xayah getting a bit of upgrade from set 3 where she was just a 1-cost, and Kayle. Yes, set 3 Kayle is back. You gotta love it. And you also have Siphoners, which essentially allow allies to get Omnivamp, while Siphoners get a ton more out of it. They include Nasus for the front line, Vladimir and Morgana for the mid-range, and Swain, who's also mid-range, but is AoE and just takes all the health from everyone, because he needs to be grandiose. He is Daddy Dragon Boy Swain. That's what he needs to be. Now, the other traits that are included are Blacksmith, Fabled, and Dragon Soul. The Fabled trait allows the champion's spells to gain an extra effect when you complete the 3-set trait, whether you have all 3 champions or 2 and one of them being chosen. They include Vanguard Nautilus, which gains percent damage reduction shield for 5 seconds, along with his standard knockup. You have Nico, whose Q ability essentially does double damage. So she'll be the nuke mystic for that comp, which will replace Cassiopeia. And you also have Cho'Gath, who's the big boy brawler, and when he knocks up, he doesn't knock up a small area like he usually does. He knocks up the entire board. All enemies knocking up to the stratosphere, and at rank 3, they knock him up for 8 seconds. You might as well just send them to the moon at that point, because 8 seconds, it's just like, well, they can't do anything unless I put a QSS there, so I guess I lose, huh? Now you have Dragon Souls, which I would say are like set 3 Dark Stars, but they have a bit of a twist, and so on. The first Dragon Soul that takes damage receives a Dragon's Blessing. And after every 5 attacks of that Dragon Blessed Dragon Soul unit, an Elder Drake will blast the target, dealing 50% of the target's max HP as magic damage. Once the unit dies, a blessing is given to the nearest Dragon Soul ally or allies that don't have any blessing. And the blessings give attack speed and spell power the more dragon units you have, and they also have the more blessings the more dragon units you also have. And they include Brand being the mage, Tristana being the sharpshooter, Braum being the vanguard, Shyvana and Aurelion Sol being the brawler and mage dragons specifically for this trait. You have Dragon Slayer Olaf, as I mentioned before, and Swain. So yeah, they seem to be pretty fun when I tested them on the PvE, and they can just rack up a ton of damage. But they're not like overpowered like, for example, Dark Stars used to be when they were first released, and you would see Jhin just one-shotting people with just a basic attack. That was always a problem. And the last one, which is Ornn's special trait, is Blacksmith, and that after participating between 4 to 1 rounds of combat, depending on which star level Ornn is at, Ornn will forge an artifact item, which are going to be all these in a second. You won't be able to give them to fully itemized units, units with Thieves' Gloves, or units that already have an artifact item on them. So you got to be careful who you give them to. They include Infinity Force, which gives 33 to all stats, including 33% dodge chance and 333 health. Manazane, which gives 15 AD, attack speed, mana, such that after the wearer's first spell cast, they restore 100 mana for 6 seconds. Basically, that allows champions with low cost spells to cast them on repeat, and allows spell users with large mana pools to cast them twice, which are very, very powerful. Gold Collector, which gives 80 dodge chance, and that the wearer will execute enemies below 10% health, and each kill gives you 1 gold. Eternal Winter, 200 HP, 15 AP, 25 armor, and enemies that damage the wearer have their attack speed slowed by 50% for 2.5 seconds. After 5 procs, that attacker is frozen. Basically, think of the glacial trait from set 2, only instead of being offensive and making your entire board just not attack at all, which is why I hated set 2, but it's more defensive and it's applied mainly to one unit, which is really great. You have Random and Sanctum, which gives armor, MR, and HP, and at combat start, all adjacent allies to the wearer, so that's usually within 1 hex, gain 50 MR and armor for the rest of combat. Obsidian Cleaver, which gives HP and AD, and the wearer's attacks and spell damage will shred armor and MR by 40% for 3 seconds. I don't know if this stacks with Morgana. If it does, this seems pretty busted. put that on Morgana, plus you add a Morello onto her, that'll pretty much be true damage. Yikes. You have Zanya's Paradox, in which the first instance of damage that will reduce the wearer's health by 40% is prevented, and it causes the unit to be invulnerable for 2.5 seconds. Anima Visage, which gives HP, attack speed, and MR, and the wearer regains 8% of maximum HP per second. You also have Rocket Propelled Fist, which essentially is an item that gives one of your allies essentially a free Blitzcrank hook, and it targets the farthest enemy champion on the board. And the last one, Death's Defiance. 15 AD, attack speed, armor, and 60% of the damage the wearer receives is instead dealt as non-lethal damage over 5 seconds. There's a bit more to go, and I mentioned a lot of it, so there's 2 more units I have to go over. Rakan is the new Elderwood Keeper that will replace Hecarim, and Sivir will be the 3-cost Cultist Sharpshooter that makes more sense than Jhin because Sivir has a W that allows her to bounce her auto attacks between minions, or in this case units. And there was also one little surprise that Mort did mention and wasn't leaked early on, like a month ago, and that was the Lucky Lantern mechanic. These orbs can appear on 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, or just not at all, and essentially the later they show up, the more goodies you get. And the goodies will range from gold to items to spatulas, a force of nature maybe, some Nikos, and new consumables. And these consumables are one-time usage, and they're very powerful when used correctly. You got loaded dice. When used on a champion on your board or bench to reroll the shop, they will only contain champions that share the same trait and origin it was used on. They cannot be used on chosen champions, and they will follow the same reroll odds as always. And in the very, very rare edge cases where, let's say, all of one trait is completely taken by all the people, it will give you random champions, again, following the same reroll odds. You have Reforger, which can allow you to essentially get rid of bad items on one champion and to reforge them. Essentially, you'll use it on a unit with one or more item or item parts, and equips all the items and chases them with different random ones of the same tier. So, item parts for item parts, fully built items with fully built items, and artifact items with other artifact items. The only exception are spatulas and spatula items, because they're special. And you have the Magnetic Remover, otherwise known as, I like to call it, the Eraser. Basically, using it on a champion with an item or an item part will unequip all items from that champion. It's very useful to get items from, let's say, an early or mid-game champion, and you want to put it on your late-game carry without having to resell and then go through the shop and then rebuy those champions and pray to God you still get them back. And now you also have the target dummy. They are a movable training dummy that has higher base level the later the Lucky Lantern spawns, and also they will upgrade later into the rounds that you get. So it can go from 1 star all the way to 4 stars into very, very, very late game scenarios. They're like Azir soldiers, where basically they just stay there and just soak up the damage. The one weird quirk about it is that you have to use it on a champion and you can't just place it on the board. So yeah, that's basically all the consumables. With all that info dumping done, there's a few things that I want to see and hope for the new set. I just hope that, along with everyone else playing TFT, that 1 or 2 comps don't dominate the set for patch after patch after patch, and you go from mages one week to brawlers to assassins the next week. It's going to be crazy. First 2 weeks will be crazy because everything's overpowered and everything's kind of busted, especially with certain interactions. But I hope later down the line everything becomes nice and smooth with a little bit of shakeup of the meta. Anyways, that's all I have to say about it. Tons of things will be changed throughout 7.5, and I hope that it brings out the best of TFT and not the worst. So, happy climbing, chalk enthusiasts, and I'll see you from the top. Bye!